So welcome, I'm joined here today with my friend Raj.
Nice to see you again, David.
Yeah, good to be in sunny Koh Phangan, or a little bit overcast today, but still not bad.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, and today we're discussing what is a meaningful life. That is the topic of
Wow, what
the
a
discussion.
heavy
Just,
topic.
Just getting something light.
What is a meaningful life?
Yeah.
It's such a thing to look at, because I think when we look at life in general, we get very caught up in the day-to-day activity of life. And when we're in a place like a big city, we are fully bought into this idea that we have to do something to be successful and happy. And I'm not saying these two are bad things. I don't want to start off on that sort of foot. But we are so caught up into that idea that we're just running after what we consider to be successful and happiness. And we never really take the time to take that break to breathe and say, well, but does it have that meaning for me? Taking the time to take the break, because what is a meaningful life is such a complicated, multi-layered question that you really have to start the process to look within, because what could be a meaningful life for me is not the same for you, and not the same for other people. And how do you go about even, trying to find that out when you're running around all the time?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think for me, personally, it was like making it a priority, because there's always the idea that, oh yeah, when I get a promotion, or when I get my own house, or when something fill in the blank happens, then I'll get around to finding that. Then I'll answer the question.
Yeah.
Then I'll discover what's important. And I realized that there's never going to be a perfect time.
No.
And that it was something that mattered to me. I just needed to make it a priority. So that for me was probably the first step.
Yes.
Prioritizing it above everything else.
Right. Because when you take that time for yourself, no matter how you take that time for yourself, then you start to develop a relationship with yourself, rather than the relationship that is constantly looking to please outsiders. Yeah. Right? And when we start to, so we can say that the first step to even coming to an understanding of what or how to live a meaningful life would be to take some time to develop a relationship with ourselves. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And that involves making time for yourself. And,
Yes.
And which involves not doing other things.
Right.
Because you don't just create time out of nowhere.
But then let's make this question tougher, because generally, we can say that and we can see that, but what if now, because we've never really been, I don't know about you, but I've never really been somebody who had to work 12 to 16 hours a day in a labor job. I'm being specific to labor, because we've all worked in offices for 12 to 16 hours a day. Our pay is generally better than people in labor. Not women, not women in labor, but people who work laborious jobs. And how would you then say to somebody like that, who's barely making ends meet, to say, hey, 30 minutes a day, you got to spend it for yourself? And how does one even break that cycle? Because a person is just stressed all the time. You got to be on your feet when you're working, and then when you get home, you got to be on your feet to clean up your house. And how does one even start the process when we're there?
Yeah, I think in those kind of things, because those kind of jobs is very, very difficult. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is definitely very challenging. It will require a lot of discipline. Yes. I think really that's the number one thing, the discipline to sacrifice feeling comfortable to make it a priority. Because if you're doing a hard labour job, it's not, you don't want to be thinking about this stuff. When you get home, you already want to collapse in front of the TV or do whatever you need to do
Correct.
So yeah, discipline, and I think that's true. Whatever your job is, like discipline is required, because the comfortable thing is to watch Netflix or to zone out or to have a drink or whatever
it is. Yeah.
Whatever your drug of choice happens to be.
But it also
it does make it a lot harder.
But it also explains how organized religions come. I mean, I know I'm moving out, but to understand a meaningful life, like as I'm thinking about it, I'm also thinking, well, who gives meaning to life traditionally? Organized religions have provided that for people over a large span of time. And I'm going to work backwards here a little bit, because I think I won't provide the answer off one interview with David, I think this is...
That'll be in the next interview. Watch out.
But I think when we look at the fact that we've always, as humans, strive for meanings in our life, and we've always looked for that answer, and there's always been people who are ready to give that answer for either reasons to be manipulative, or it just happens that way.
Yeah.
And we want to look backwards to now, so that whatever I speak, I can also speak to somebody who's in an office job, or is a stay-at-home mother, or is somebody who's going through a self-discovery process, and also that 16 to 18 hour laborer who's barely making ends meet. And even though I've not sat in everybody's shoes, I'm going to try to speak as plainly and as clearly as possible, and trying to communicate with anybody out there who does watch this video.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to touch on the topic of organized religion to begin with, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Sikh, whether it's Hinduism, because I think the first thing organized religion gives you, it gives you an out. It says, hey, don't worry so much about working on yourself. You just have to worship this deity or this deity, and worship this idea or concept of God that you cannot imagine. And then, between those big things and you, since you don't have time, there's this person in between.
Yeah.
So Right. So then the priest comes in, or the monk comes in. And again, I'm not saying priests and monks are bad. Everybody in this world, it's a gray area. Some individuals will be amazing, some individuals maybe not so. I'm not here to discuss that. But what I'm trying to come at is saying that becomes the perceived shortcut. I make a donation to my temple. I'll take 10% of my income. In Thailand, this is very common. People will give 5 to 20% of their income to the temple. And so the power, or that power then goes towards the temple.
Yeah, it's like a proxy for the actual work.
But what happens to the individual is they feel by giving it to this organized place, there's a little bit of meaning to the life.
Yeah.
Right. And so we can then conclude based on this that the idea of a meaningful life includes in a large part two things. One is this idea of universal love, and the second is that there is a spiritual essence towards it. Right? The person I cannot speak to, or that I have difficulty speaking to, would be the atheist who completely rejects all notion of spirituality.
Yeah.
But I can speak to the agnostic. It's a slight difference.
Yeah, I'm agnostic. And I think, the spirituality, like at its heart, and I think even atheists could get on board, is that it's about something bigger than yourself. But
they don't believe in anything bigger than themselves. Maybe I'm getting atheism wrong.
I mean, I'm not an expert on atheism, but I mean, for example, like the community or the planet or their family. Like,
I understand.
These
community, planet, these are bigger than
family,
ourselves.
Community, planet.
So, see, we've got two things that we've had to cover here. One was the discipline and the work on the self, and the second is something bigger and broader than who we are. So we just went from, you must be disciplined, to, well, now that we understand that meaning comes from looking beyond ourselves, but also having to do the work inside. And so it is easier then to support the outside than it is to work on the inside.
Definitely, yeah. And that's what you think your point on religion.
Yes, and that is the point on the religion.
Not to
Well,
disparage
I'm
you,
actually glad to talk to you
Yeah.
because then I also broaden my horizon to be able to say that yes, atheists also we can speak to, because because when we have that desire to do more than just us or more than just the me or the I, then we have something larger, and in there comes the meaning.
Yes.
Right. And I'm going to define yoga, not just Kundalini, as a very spiritual practice. Because when we work in that body's alignment, when we work on the pranayama or the breath, when we work on the chant, there's a feeling of centeredness that comes out that cannot be explained. And what I found was that as I wanted to keep moving forward, I wanted to share this with more and more people. And I felt that being able to go into my own, my own path rather than somebody else's path, and finding a way to share that from my authentic self was going to give me meaning. And maybe it comes back to this idea that only if I had this, but I don't feel that. I feel the day breath that I'm taking, even just to have that and to work towards that provides the meaning in the life that I have currently.
Yeah.
And I feel that discipline there, the service towards others is there, and the fact that I could make a choice to move out of one area towards another, meaning that once I realized how important the choices I can make are, I found it much easier to understand how choice bridges that divide between the subconscious and the unconscious to the conscious reality. And through that bridge of choice, I felt more in tune with myself. And once the tuning felt, right, then the meaning is there.
The bridge between the subconscious and the conscious.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
A lot of times I find that people, including myself, are lost in our own minds. And our minds run on different chatters at different times of the day. And a lot of these chatters include things should, could, and should have done this, should have said this, should have done that. And then when those words get silent, they don't disappear completely. They go into the area of the subconscious. And in that area we become, we push something down. And in that area it stays active. It stays active, and sometimes we notice it and sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
That's why I called it the subconscious and the unconscious. Now, when we realize that instead of the should and would staying there, what can I do now to alter this feeling inside? Because now I have something running in the background that I need to release. And when I make that choice, now the decision is mine. So the consequences or the benefits of that decision I get to enjoy. So the reality of life that I look out towards changes. And what goes on inside then, and the reality of the outside, which is the conscious living, right? I am choosing this. And this difference between these two areas is my choice. The choice is mine. Even when I feel I have no choice, I tell myself I do have a choice. Maybe my two choices are not good.
Yeah.
But it is my choice.
Yeah, exactly.
The situation of life, my choices before have led me to where I am now. And part of it is a conscious reality, and part of it are things that we have no control over. And that's the thing. The idea that we have no control, plus we have full choice. When both of these can be accepted at once, then we really understand the power of choice. And I really think that the meaningful life comes from this factor of making good choices.
Absolutely, yeah. Do you have a tangible example of where you maybe noticed a pattern or something that one of these shoulds or musts or that you've just been talking about,
Yeah,
and brought it into consciousness and then did something different to the habit?
Well, if I'm gonna go for really simple,
Yeah,
right?
just to make it easier for people to
Yeah.
get.
So I like to spend a good, at least 20 minutes a day, but up to 1.5 hours. I make the conscious choice that, all right, I'm going to spend this time just to move my body, sometimes very gentle movements. I mean, the asana is the part of yoga that is there just to open up the body. And the function of the asana, which is to, have the joints and the blood flow everywhere. Once you get that, then you realize that the perfection in asana, or that adrenaline rush in asana, is, at least now, again for me, maybe I perceive life differently, but it became less important. And it became more about my relationship with myself. And the choice is there so that every day I can spend a bit of time with myself. This is my time, my relationship with myself. But it took a lot of time to go in and out of this practice, because every time I would step out, after a while, different things start happening. And I realize I'm not as active, I'm not as conscious, I'm not as mindful. And so to come back to that state, I must have my morning practice. But this must is now my understanding that I need to do this. This is not an obligation. Oh, I must have this. It becomes, I realize that when I do this, life makes sense for me. And when I don't do this, I feel like I'm unawake and just passing through life without any meaning.
Yeah.
And when I do it, then I'm like, all right, well, in what way does it work for the person that I am? And then it got modified, because sometimes I have only 15 minutes or 20 minutes.
Yeah. I got from that is, well, number one, like taking out the dogma.
Yeah.
And two, like the difference between obligation and, if you like, reward. I like to eat healthy and I like to do exercise. Some people relate to it like it's a punishment. Like someone's forcing them to do it.
Yeah.
Of course, sometimes I don't feel like doing it because I might be exhausted, but I'm not seeing it as a punishment, I'm seeing it as a reward. Yeah, it's like taking ownership of it.
Yeah, taking ownership of it. I think this is a very crucial step towards bringing meaning into life, is to take ownership of the life. And this works not mattering what your job is. You might have a 12 to 16 hour workday. You might be a laborer. But, your circumstances are that. You start from there. And then you have, we think from the point of, well, what are the choices I can make if I want to say break this chain of working in a 16 hour? What are the things I could do today? It starts from, well, if I want to break from this, maybe I need to save money. What can I spend less? Because in a city is really expensive. What can I put away so that I can start saving? Because eventually you will find, as I have, and I'm sure you have, is that when you start to work on yourself, at some point you're not going to know what more to do. And so that money must be in reserve to be able to spend a little bit of it to learn new things that you don't know about.
Yeah.
Because we live in a capitalist environment. To move forward in this reality, we have to use the money. This is how we've created this illusion, far from nature. And having that small saving, even if it's 50 pennies a day or something, you can always find something worth $1 or $2 that you can learn from. And then the second part is, all right, I've learned it, now I have to integrate it.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, what's the difference that makes the difference? I think it's like being able to integrate it, as you say, into everyday practical living. Because if you can't do that, then it's almost like, what's the point?
There's a trap when you're presented with like, oh wow, here you can learn A, B, C, D, E, and not just that, I've got F, G, H, I, J, K to teach you too, only for this. And then what happens is, yes, you're getting information, but you're getting an overload of it. And then the sensory abilities can only take so much, which looks good when you're away. But then when you go back to your daily life, how much can you actually integrate that?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be better to come, learn A, B, C, stop there? Because you're going to find each time you go back with over information, it's hard to integrate all of it. So you go with ABC, you go back and, all right, A works. B, I'll modify it to my style. C, I'll see about C.
Yeah.
And then let me get A and B worked out. Then you get C worked out. Then you're like, all right, I think I've kind of reached my peak here and I can't move forward. Let me go back and learn D, E, F.
No, you can learn a lot online.
Yeah. We live in a world where, the internet, this device, can either distract you or be an amazing device to learn. My daughter, 9 years, eight and a half, almost 9, wanted to learn how to do a Rubik's Cube. I told her, I don't know how to do a Rubik's Cube. So she was like, well, what do I do? I told her, try YouTube. 2 weeks later, she can do 2 sides of the Rubik's Cube.
Cool.
Right?
Yeah. In my opinion, having integrity is one of the biggest things in creating a meaningful life.
Correct.
Like living what you talk.
Yeah.
So that
being authentic.
Being authentic. Yeah. Being authentic. Like, so you're not just saying one thing on camera or one thing in public and another thing in private. And that it's difficult. It is very difficult.
We all have our own triggers.
Yeah, we will have our own triggers, things that we would rather not have happened or were different. But being able to be honest about that and trying to live what you talk, I think
it's a very integral part.
100%.
Not just for people who teach it, but for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think there's a weird, usually in my experience, when people are like learning self-help or spirituality, there is a weird kind of schism that occurs where someone's learning a lot and this is for people that are very into it. They're talking a great talk, but they're not necessarily living the reality. And then there's an alignment phase that happens. And that, I think, as far as I can see, that's like part of the learning phases. It's like, oh yeah, I've discovered this new thing and I'm going to tell everyone about it and talk about it, but I haven't quite integrated it fully.
I think that's part, like you said, it's a self-discovery process.
Yeah.
Because as we're excited to learn something new, so we talk to everybody about it. I would say that is true for me too.
Yeah, me too. I'm thinking of myself when I first kind of discovered self-development, and I was like, oh my god, like this whole world out here. The first thing we spoke about was the priority, making this, if you want to have a meaningful life, make it a priority.
Second was
discipline.
Discipline, yes, making it a priority, putting the discipline into it. And we came back to discipline to end it with. The idea of a meaningful life has always existed with us. Yeah. And there's always been a bridge or something, between us and this idea of the meaning in our life. We have to take that middleman away and we have to come into ourselves. So the choice comes in. Yeah. Right? So we have the desire, the want, the I want to get better, the discipline, the time to make for it, the choice to make for it, and the money to put behind it.
And the definition that we came up with, something bigger than yourself, like whether that's family, community, the world, spirituality, and we spoke about religion. Yeah. So if people want to find out a bit more about you, Raj, where's a good place they can reach you?
The best thing is go to Instagram and look for hipsteryogi, HIPSTER. If you could write it down.
Yeah, I'll put a link in. Yeah.
All right. So Instagram.com/hipsteryogi. I got that back when Instagram first came out, and I'm not giving it up. Yeah. I mean, it's so cool. And I have a website too, hipsteryogi.com, but I haven't updated that for 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'll put that in the link.
Thanks, David. That was really cool, man. Thanks.
Nice one. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the bell button to be updated on all the latest videos. You can check me out on Instagram at David Bailey Life Coach.